by the power of Grayskull.
I made a money.
That's a big Twinkie.
All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of the Toy Aisle. And this is a very, very special episode because tonight we're talking about the 1980s cartoon Mask. And I am your host, Steve Garcia. And on the phone right now, I got my two co-hosts. I got Ben Meyer. Ben, how you doing?
Doing well.
And I got my other co-host, Aaron. What's going on, Aaron?
Not much. How you doing tonight?
Man, everything is good, man. So, Ben, how was your weekend, man?
It's been busy. It's been busy. I'm a little winded here, but ready to go.
Did you do a lot of transforming sorting this weekend for the store?
We have been absolutely barraged with incoming stuff, which is, it's a good problem to have. A lot of older stuff, which takes a lot more time to sort and make any necessary repairs and, switch parts around to make sure that we have some nice figures to list for sale. But we just purchased a really nice Masters of the Universe collection today, and so we'll be looking forward to putting that up.
Awesome, man. Hey, I got some news for you since you're a Transformer fan. I don't know if you heard the news.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
You
want to get me on an hour-long rant on this one? Go for it, buddy.
Oh, man. I think you know where this is going, Ben. I think you know. I just got the notification the other day. Aaron, I don't know if you found out about this either, but they're doing obviously they had the Transformers Ecto-1 Ectotron, which was the Transformer that was the Ecto-1 car, which transformed, and they're doing the Back to the Future vehicle that's a Transformer. So, Ben, I don't know how you feel about that.
So here's my take. I think it looks pretty neat, and if you want one, they did a limited edition run of 1,985 pieces. For the movie came out in 1985, and for the limited edition, they have the serial number of the production on the license plate. So you get a number between 1 and 1985 on the license plate. And if you want one of these, you can either get in your own DeLorean and time travel to, I don't know, sometime like 4:37 yesterday afternoon, or you can use your book from the future and win the lottery so that you can afford to buy one from an eBay scalper for between $800 and $1,000 on eBay.
Wow.
Otherwise, I guess they're releasing a second version through Hasbro Pulse that just doesn't have the tampograph on the license plate of the special edition serial number. But yeah, I found out about that yesterday. At about 12:30 Eastern, and the article said that they were going to go live on Walmart.com at 1 p.m. today, the 3rd. But then they corrected it. It was actually 1 p.m. yesterday, but the site did not have the listing. The listing was broken or missing from the Walmart site at 1 p.m. yesterday, and apparently showed up sometime later in the afternoon for between 30 and 60 seconds until the bots were able to buy them all out for eBay scalpers.
Of course. With any exclusive, everything gets sold within seconds. That just happened with the NECA, TNMT, Casey Jones, and Raphael 2-pack.
I actually saw that on one of the Transformers forums. I was trying to find out because I saw the listing yesterday at like 4:30. The listing was on Walmart as sold out. And I was like, what? Did they actually sell any of them yet? was I supposed to have tuned in today? I wasn't really clear if any had actually changed hands or not. So I hit the forums, and they were like, yeah, this just happened with this Casey Jones set. But the Casey Jones set, I guess they at least had a limit of 2 per customer, which they usually do for online, like limited run exclusive Transformers. There's usually a limit of 1 or 2 per household. But apparently this one, they decided to just turn it over to the De Beers Diamond Company to buy the entire diamond mine and then, pump up the price on eBay. And so I also wasn't clear on what the difference was going to be in the versions, so I was a little upset yesterday because I'm a completist. I was going to get whatever. But apparently the only difference is the license plate, so I'm just going to let it slide and grab it when it comes out on Hasbro Pulse in October, if the world is still around by then.
I feel like that I would not want a limited edition license plate because I would want like the license plate that says out of time. I don't want the 0001 because I'm looking at a picture now of it, the 0001 of 1985. Like, I don't know. To me, like, that's not like the screen accurate version. Like, okay, yeah, it's cool. It's a limited edition, but I would want the later version with like the accurate license plate.
Yeah, I don't know if the later version is going to have the accurate license plate or just no license plate. I'm not really sure, but I guess it's a small enough detail for a $30 toy that I'm not really gonna get upset one way or the other. Did you guys also know that they are doing a? Sorry, Aaron, I think I talked over you there. Go ahead.
No, I was just making a joke. I said, well, it's not a $30 toy anymore. It's a $800 toy apparently now.
Right. Well, just remember what we say at Transformerland. It's worth what somebody will actually pay for it. You can ask whatever you want. So hopefully nobody pays the idiot tax and buys one of the $800 ones. But they're also doing a crossover figure for Top Gun called Maverick, and he's going to turn into an F-14 Tomcat. That was revealed a while back. I have no idea when it's coming out, but they're obviously in for the long haul on the 80s movie crossover Transformers, which was only a matter of time.
Right.
Oh my God. Are you telling me that we're going to get an Eddie Murphy Beverly Hills Cop Transformer?
I don't know. I guess I'm kind of pulling for the A-Team van.
Actually, that would be awesome, the A-Team van. I would love that, man.
I'm thinking like maybe an Ironhide mold and, just retool them a little bit to be that, what was it, a GMC or something that they used?
That would be awesome. Yeah. So I guess Hasbro and Transformers are coming down the whole 80s movie line now. I mean, they did the Ecto, they're doing the Back to the Future. Hopefully they'll do the A-Team, and who knows what else they got down the line. But man, I'm telling you, we are living in this toy world where it's exclusives just to Walmart and Target, and if you can't go online and get it and the scalpers get it, you're either gonna have to wait online on the actual website or at a Comic-Con, which the price will be triple or double, or just get a knockoff. So
apparently the rumor is, and of course nobody can confirm this, but the rumor is that the 1985 edition of Gigawatt was supposed to have been an SDCC exclusive, which makes sense because they usually have, at least 1 or 2 special Transformers related items this time of year for SDCC. But yeah, they obviously botched the, I think it might have been Walmart's end that they botched the distribution pretty hard, by saying 1 p.m. on the 2nd, maybe the 3rd, maybe the 2nd, and then not having it up then and not having limits. I mean, Hasbro's distribution for exclusives has always been spotty, but usually when they say it's going to be available, it is available, and usually there's a limit of 1 or 2 per person so that you have a chance, a prayer, of getting to one of them before they're sold out. But yeah, exclusives, I'm kind of over the concept of exclusives, especially during that event, which is still happening in the United States. Like, I don't go to stores. I go to the grocery store once every 3 weeks, and other than that, I try not to leave my apartment at all.
So like having me chase all over for exclusives is not my idea of fun. You know, just put it on Hasbro Pulse. I'll send you some money. You mail it to me. You know.
Yep, that's the way to go. Aaron, how's your weekend going? And I know you had a pretty good weekend at the flea market because you found that special figure.
Yeah. Thanks to you. I did find a Ecto Glow. Who was it? I'm trying to remember who it was. Anyways,
yeah, I think it was Peter.
Peter. Yeah. Ecto Glow Peter. So I got 4 out of the 5 of those. So that was a good week. That was a good find for the week. Overall, decent week. Nothing crazy. Got a couple pieces off of eBay and some of the Facebook groups, but no, everything's been going good.
That's awesome. And Ben, if you don't know much about like the real Ghostbusters toy line, so the Ecto Glows, there were Peter, the 4 Ghostbusters. I think Janine was one of them, and they actually glowed in the middle of the night. But these are like really rare, hard to find. Usually they go on eBay for like between 200, 300, depending how mint they are. And me and Aaron, we go to the same flea market every Sunday, and our buddy Dave, who has a shop called Finders Seekers in Goffstown, New Hampshire, we usually get a lot of vintage toys from him. He had an Ecto Glow, and I'm holding it in my hand. I'm like, dude, do you know how much this goes for? And like, he was like, yeah, do you want it for $25? I'm like, $25? And Aaron hooked me up with the Foo Fighters bin that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
So because he gave me such a great deal on his Foo Fighters, the only way that I can repay him back was like, here you go, bro. Take this Ecto Glow for your set. So that was a great find.
Yeah, karma comes back around, and you know, you gotta give credit where credit's due. You pointed it out, and as soon as you pointed it out, I thought it was going in your pocket, brother. I was like, oh man. I was like, it's going in his pocket. It's gonna be a year or 2 years before I find another one of these things. And no, I greatly appreciate it, and I sent you that picture. It looks great with the set. So, you know, always gotta give credit where credit's due.
Nah, thank you. So guys, you guys know that we're gonna get into Mask. And I don't know when was the last time you guys watched the cartoon series, but it's up on YouTube right now. You can watch some of the episodes. And for the audience listening right now, Mask was a cartoon series produced by Deke, and it ran from 1985 to 1986 with 2 seasons. The second season, I think, Ben, you mentioned that it was all racing for the second season.
It was so weird and disconnected from the first season. It was almost like watching a different show. But yeah, it was the racing series, and it corresponded to the 3rd set of toys. So the first and second sets were both included in the first season of the cartoon. And then the 3rd set of toys was the racing series, and then the 4th set was after the cartoon was over, and that was the split seconds.
Yeah. I never got the chance to watch the second season, but oh my God, did I watch the first 4 episodes. And I was confused, frustrated. My mind was all over the place. So I'm going to go through some stuff about this show right now with the series before we get into the toys. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but in the 80s, most cartoons only had 65 episodes. I don't know if you guys noticed that about some cartoon series in the 80s. And Mask, the first season had 65 episodes. And that was due because of the 65 episode rule. And I just researched that. Did you guys ever hear about that in the 80s, the 65 episode rule?
No, I assume it corresponded to broadcast scheduling.
Yeah, it did. So in the 80s, there was this 65 episode rule because 65 episodes equals 13 weeks or 3 months of material to syndicate at 1 episode per weekday. This was typical with cartoons produced for first-run syndications. Later on, Disney Channel ended up adapting that, so they called it the 65-episode Disney rule. But they actually did that more with kids' live-action comedy shows more than cartoons. This rule actually kept going until like the turn of the millennium. This was the only trope that really applied to cartoons aimed towards children rather than adult cartoons. So like the 65 episode rule back in the 80s and in the 90s was geared towards more children's cartoons than like adult standard cartoons. And then by the end of the millennium, the broadcast syndications, they stopped doing the 65 episode rule when cartoons actually became more exclusive to cable networks. So you had cartoons in the 80s like the Bionic Six, Centurions, Brave Star, Ben, your favorite, Challenge of the GoBots, and Dinosaurs, and a whole bunch of other 80s cartoons where their first season was 65 episodes, and sometimes they didn't even continue afterwards. So it sucked being a kid in the 80s where if you were into a cartoon show and your show didn't air for a second season, that was it, man. You had 65 episodes, and it was great for like networks because they get to rerun the shows over and over again. But Mask was one of those shows, and like anything in the 80s, guys, you know why this cartoon was made, right?
To sell toys.
Exactly, to sell toys. And Kenner and Hasbro were rocking in on the toy sales. Now, do you guys know what MASS stands for?
Mobile Armored Strike Command.
That's right, Mobile Armored Strike Command. But command is with a K.
Because it's cooler that way.
It's cooler that way, and kids like us back then were like, Mom, let me get that MASS toy. Yeah, the one with the K. Yeah, it's cool.
Now, you got to tell them the abbreviation for Mask's enemy, Venom, because that, of course, was also an acronym, which is just the most hilarious thing.
Ben, do you want to tell the audience what that stands for, Aaron?
Yeah, the Vicious Evil Network of Mayhem.
This is straight out of the memes where it's like, how are we going to find the bad guy's lair? And then it's just like a giant, obviously evil fortress in the middle of a normal city. Yeah, they were a little on the nose with that.
I just don't. Okay, so like, as soon as you read Venom, what's the first thing you think about? Cobra. Like, it's just a total, like, a G.I. Joe, you got laser beams, you got all this stuff, and it's not, they can't just be evil, they have to be viciously evil.
Yes. And we all know that snakes are the most evil animal on Earth, so that's why so many of these series had a team of evil guys with a snake theme. I mean, even Motu, Masters of the Universe, had the Snake Men under King Hiss. So yeah, snakes equals evil. And the color purple also equals evil. Decepticons, they got the purple symbol. There's a lot of purple imagery around some of the evil mask vehicles. So yeah, there's only one way to do it. You don't have a second choice.
Yeah, it's so true. You and Aaron hit the nail on the head, Ben, because like Kenner and Hasbro, this was just a way for them to sell toys, and like Aaron said, it was a mix of G.I. Joe meets Transformers. Because for those of you that are listening right now and don't know what MASS is about, so MASS is a task force. Now, in this task force, they have vehicles that turn into other vehicles. You have a Jeep that turns into a jet-like machine for the sea. In addition to the vehicles, they also have these masks that allow them to have special powers. And oh my God, there were so many masks. I watched the first 4 episodes. I couldn't keep up. I mean, I don't know when was the last time you guys watched this cartoon series.
So I ended up, after we discussed this the last time, I ended up watching the pilot. And I'm right there with you as me being, and I'll say my age, I'm not afraid of it, me being 36 and watching this show, I was so confused over the first episode. And the first thing I thought was, okay, they gave every vehicle 30 seconds, because what like you said, they're in it to sell toys. So every vehicle that they ever in the first line is in the show for about 30 seconds, and you're like, okay, and they're showing off the masks, but where did the masks come from? How did they get their powers? Like none of that was explained. Who are these people? You have Matt Tracker, who's like the billionaire Bruce Wayne playboy with his secret lair. And then it's like, but nothing's explained. And then they're just fighting each other over a stupid meteor. And it's like, okay, maybe 6-year-old me enjoyed this because you don't care about storylines. You just care about laser beams and cool vehicles. But 36-year-old Aaron was confused as hell.
So what you're missing, Aaron, is the toys, because these cartoons didn't exist in a vacuum. So by the time the show came on TV, you already probably owned Rhino, Thunderhawk, Switchblade, Condor, and, depending if you were lucky or unlucky, the Scott Tracker and T-Bob set. And so the toys, like when I watched the show, which the last time admittedly was probably 7 years ago, at that point, I already almost had a complete collection of the toys, if it wasn't complete already. And so when I saw the stuff on the screen, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I knew all the different masks because the toys all include the masks. And they kind of dump. Basically, the first episode just dumps the whole first series of toys on you all at once. And then after that, each episode the computer automatically determines which vehicles and drivers are best suited for the mission, and so they'll pick maybe 3, maybe 4 vehicles and their drivers to go out on the mission, and you get a little more used to it. But I mean, 80s cartoons being like, here's the new toys, go out and buy them. It doesn't matter if it makes sense, just go do it, just go spend money.
Absolutely. But then doing my research and, all that other stuff, it's like, then you read, okay, there was a comic book that was in with the toys, and that kind of gave you the backstory. And so if the toys were produced first and then you got the comic book, why wouldn't they have taken that comic book and then that would have been the pilot, because that would have made sense, right? And so, you read the comic book and it gives you the backstory. It gives you, of Miles Mayhem and, Matt Tracker and how they're involved. And it's like, okay, cool. That's great. But then you watch the first episode and there's none of that. They're fighting over a meteor. And it's like going, okay, cool. Like, so it's interesting to kind of see, like, if the toys came first, that little mini comic came out with the toys, and then it's like, well, the pilot just is another universe of Mask.
So this is again not uncommon for 80s stuff. The reason being is there were 2 different creative teams. There was not anybody coordinating between the animators making the show at DiC and the comic, which I don't know if that was like farmed out to Marvel or something, maybe a smaller comic studio. But there was nobody at the helm there being like, okay, now you got to make sure in the first episode and the first issue to tell them that, Miles Mayhem used to be Matt Tracker's friend, but then he killed his brother, and that's why he's now the bad guy. They're just like, we have these toys. Look at these toys. This is what we want to sell kids. These are the bad guy toys. These are the good guy toys. Go at it. And they came up with completely opposite things. This happened with the He-Man mini comics that, again, were packed in behind the figures. They're totally different portrayal than the cartoon. Transformers, one of the most celebrated and beloved 80s franchises, never mind cartoons. The Marvel Comics, which came out several months earlier than the show started airing, told a completely different story. And it was because, other than the initial, okay, here's Optimus Prime, he's your robot dad, he's invincible, you love him, he's just great. Here's Megatron, he's really bad, he wants to own the entire universe and suck at drive all the energy. And then they just let these different creative teams go at it. And so, yeah, it was very disparate. And the Mask show,
not one of the better 80s cartoons. It was decent. It was entertaining. Like Steve said, there were some racial things that did not age very well. I get that they were trying to be inclusive and show, oh look, there's good guys from all different, racial backgrounds. They're all good guys together. But yeah, well, you only got 4 voice actors, and so you got to pick voice actors that are available to do 65 episodes of a cartoon in 1 year. Which, let's be honest, that's a lot. That's a lot of cartoon to animate in one, for one season. And so, yeah, you're going to have guys that, you're playing 6, 7 different characters. The best way to tell them apart is to give them a goofy accent.
Oh my God! You know what? And it's crazy, Ben and Aaron. Like you said, I watched that pilot episode, and holy shit, my mind was lost. Vehicles were turning into vehicles. Masks was changing masks. People had like 50 names, and it's funny because like I forgot about the cartoon show, and I'm like, okay, I thought that the masks would allow them to control the vehicles in a telepathic kind of way. But I was totally fucking wrong. Like, I was really wrong off of that. And then I thought that the masks were part of a special armor or suit. But like, I was wrong off that because there was an episode and one of the guys is wearing the mask and he comes out with like a tank top and half his beard is coming off the mask. And I'm like, is that part of his summer outfit? Like, what the hell is going on in the show? Like,
the masks are just wearable superpowers. That's all it is. It's like, oh, you get one superpower per mask, and whoever puts the mask on has it. It doesn't matter if the mask is color matched to your uniform like it is on all the toy figures.
Yeah, it was crazy. Now, do you guys remember the theme song for Mask?
It is one of the greatest 80s theme songs of all time.
I was about to say the exact same thing. The theme song, like if you listen to the theme song, that thing's jamming, and you're like going, okay, like it was great.
Now, do you guys know who actually produced that theme song?
I think I've heard the band one time, but I do not remember it because the guy. So I saw a cover version of the theme song on YouTube that a really talented guy did with like a loop pedal and guitar and keyboard and drum machine and stuff, and it was really amazing. And the original singer came out and was like, hey, I wrote this song, you did a great cover, thanks for caring about my work, but I do not remember who it was.
So you guys are gonna get mind blown when I tell you this. So Haim Saban?
Yes.
So Haim Saban, he did Power Rangers and all that. So Haim Saban and Shuki Levy, they actually wrote the theme song to Max. Not only did they wrote the theme song to Max, but every single 80s cartoon from our childhood was written by Haim Saban and Shuki Levy. I'm talking about Masters of the Universe, Transformers. They did it all. Real Ghostbusters. These guys were writing every theme song to every single 80s cartoon show we grew up with. So now, let's go over this theme song for a second, all right? Because, like, I think the intro is, 30 seconds? And we get to see all the vehicles? All right.
Yeah.
So the theme song goes, Masked Crusaders, working overtime, fighting crime, fighting crime. Now, I just want to highlight that. Working overtime. Who's paying these guys? I didn't even know they were working, with special health benefits and everything, working overtime.
No. See, if you watch enough of the show, they show all of the characters doing their day jobs.
Right. We're gonna get into that. Ben, trust me, we're gonna get into that. We are definitely getting into that. You hit the nail on the head with that. So we're definitely going to get into that. And, I think Ben or Aaron, one of you guys was explaining the story behind Matt. So I don't know if you guys want to tell the audience, why is it that Matt Tracker is going after Miles Mayhem? What's that whole story behind that?
Well, I kind of touched on it it was the comic book series. and that was the first mini comic that kind of explained the separation between Mask and Venom. And there was Matt Trakker and his brother were working with Miles Mayhem and trying to create, this new technology. But at that point, it wasn't. They were anonymous, nobody put their names on it because it was like this secret project. And then Miles Mayhem didn't want that. He wanted kind of the grandeur that came along with the technology. So he stole the plans, and Matt Trakker's brother ended up dying in the fire during all this. But Miles only stole half the plans. So Matt had half the plans, Miles had half the plans, and Miles created Venom and Matt created Mask in order to combat Venom because Miles started pumping out all this technology.
Perfect, man. That's perfect. And you know what? Like, they don't even introduce that, like you said, in the first pilot episode. Like, none of that was introduced at all. And for the audience listening to that, so Matt Trakker, like Aaron said, is the leader of Mask, and his mask is Spectrum. And each character in the show, like in the first episode, there was like 15 guys introduced, and they were all talking about their masks and their powers. And I mean, I was just lost in the first episode, but like, Trakker has the power of Spectrum, and each character in the show, whatever mask they're wearing, gives them some sort of special power. Now, Ben, you haven't watched the show, you said, within the last 7 years, right?
That's right, but I do remember all the masks and powers because of the toys. So if you want a full rundown, I can catch you guys up.
You know what? We're gonna get into that. We are definitely gonna get into that. So like, I watched the first pilot episode, and Aaron, I know you did as well. So can you in the first pilot episode, a meteor crashes, right, Aaron? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
there's some reporter, and I forgot her name, but she's covering the story of this meteor, and then the fake UFO comes in and abduct. It takes the meteor, and the meteor has healing powers, and then Miles Mayhem ends up cutting it into 3 pieces, and then once he cuts it, it turns into destructive power, and can kill anything. And then he tries to auction it off like old school, like Dr. Evil, like $1 million. He sits there and goes, well, I'm gonna auction this off and make some money off this meteor. And then that's where Mask comes in and has to stop him from selling the meteor.
Oh my God, Ben, you're gonna get a kick out of this, Ben, because I know you remember this. And Aaron, I know you got a kick out of this when you saw this. So I totally forgot that. And again, I haven't watched the show since I was a kid. So Matt Trakker goes back with the scientist back to his lair, his multi-millionaire mansion, and he goes in front of this computer, right? Now, he presses all these buttons, and what the computer does is that it sends a signal to all these guys wearing these special watches, and the mask symbol comes on in it. And what's funny is that all these guys are doing mundane jobs, right? So the computer starts picking people, and it starts naming characters and like their special abilities and stuff. And oh my God, I lost it. So the computer picks this pizza guy. I forgot his name, Aaron. Do you remember the guy that was throwing the pizzas in the first pilot episode? Like,
I think you're gonna have to throw that one to Ben.
Ben, who's that? Dusty?
That's Dusty Hayes.
Oh my God. So like, I'm watching this show, and the computer's picking like Dusty Hayes, special power, this and that, and like he's throwing a pizza up in the air. The pizza falls. He runs out, and like you see the little kid looking like, what the hell just happened? Like he just runs out of nowhere. Then like there's another montage, and it's one of the guys, he's playing guitar with a rock band on stage, and he just runs off. Like he just runs off stage, and I'm just like,
here's the thing. Tell me that has not happened in at least every band at least once, where one of the musicians just like, no, you know what? I'm done. I'm leaving. I mean, famously, I don't even listen to this music, but I know Kanye West was just like, no, I changed my mind. I'm not doing this right now. I'm just gonna leave in the middle of the set or whatever. I mean, that's totally a thing that those rock star guys do.
It's so true. And like I just couldn't stop laughing because how the hell did these guys keep these mundane jobs? Because I mean, come on, guys, mass isn't a full-time gig. You know, so like how do these guys, like I think one of the guys was a teacher, right, Aaron? Like he was teaching in class and then his like watch goes off, he just runs it off in the middle of the class. Like,
well, yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, it's like, well, what is their full-time job? Is their full-time job working for Mask? Is Matt Tracker paying these guys? And so is Matt Tracker their kind of sugar daddy? And it's like, oh, my watch went off. Guess what? I got to go to work, you know? So, but like as soon as you said that, like the first thing that came into my mind, now obviously the show came out later, but like was that computer the original Zordon? And were these like the original Power Rangers? Like because they got the special watches on, it was like, okay, you know, my special watch went off, I got to go to work.
No, it goes the other way. When you're in high school, you become a Power Ranger. And then when you're a little, you know, more middle-aged, not quite as physically fit for doing all those high kicks, then you join Mask and you just drive a vehicle around to do the crime fighting for you.
You know what was hilarious too, and I couldn't stop laughing, is that when Matt Tracker hits the button on the computer and it's picking people, the computer will be like Hondo Striker McLean, weapon specialist, tactical strategist, occupation, history teacher. And I'm just like, all right, hold on one second. You mean to tell me that these guys have like killer, like military assassin type resumes, but they have like these mundane jobs. So it'll be like Joe Smith, bomb expert, tactical sniper, occupation, McDonald's drive-through worker. Like, come on, like, are you serious?
Dusty Hayes is regularly depicted delivering pizzas from Gator, like the Jeep that launches a boat and has like a battle cannon on the roof. He just uses that to deliver pizzas from his pizza shop. That's just his daily.
Yeah, it's his daily driver.
Hey, sir, you didn't tip me right. You don't deserve a tip. It's just a bomb goes off, man. Oh my god. So yeah, like the first episode, man, I couldn't stop laughing, but nothing beats the 80s PSAs after this first pilot episode. Oh my god. Now T-Bob and Scott Tracker are so annoying because like I watched like 4 episodes and for some reason T-Bob and Scott Tracker are almost close to death, but they never die. And they always have to get saved at the end. I mean, like, Aaron, did you watch that PSA with T-Bob and like Scott Tracker where they're playing ball?
Yeah, and it was just like, so again, you know, so I'm laughing to myself because, yeah, I ended up watching it. But it's like, again, where did they take that from? G.I. Joe, right? G.I. Joe had the PSAs. And it's like,
G.I.
okay,
Joe took
come
it
on.
from He-Man.
Oh, yeah. So I was just like, but, you know, it was just like, okay, here's another way of like kind of recycling that same idea. But yeah, like, oh, let's throw the ball. Oh, well, I'd catch it if you wouldn't throw it far. You know, you'd throw it to me or whatever. And I agree. Like, you know, like how did he get thrown from that freaking Jeep going like 200 miles an hour in the desert and just rolls? And he's like, I'm over here, guys. Come pick me up.
Oh my god, it's so funny because in that PSA, Aaron, like oh my god, Ben. So like T-Bob and Scott Tracker, they're playing ball, right? And the ball goes onto the street, and a truck. So Scott Tracker goes to pick up the ball, and a truck nearly misses him and like cuts his head off, right? And before that happens, out of nowhere, Matt Tracker just shows up and picks up the ball for him. And I'm like, okay, was he just standing there on the sideline? Like, I'm just like, what is going on, man? Oh my god. So like, anyways, that was the first pilot episode, and man, I don't even want like the second episode. There was so many racial undertones, man, and like, so anyways, there was a scene where Dusty is trying to remember something about an emerald, and the episode had to do about an emerald, and there was a lot of Native American jokes in it. So like, Dusty's trying to remember the name of the emerald, and Matt Tracker looks at him, and he goes, "Dusty, you can't remember? What do you have? An empty teepee on your head?" And I'm like,
Oh.
what in the
Ay.
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. But anyways, man, like, that's a little bit for the audience. I know we went in, a little bit about the cartoon series, but for those listening, if you have not seen Mask, now, like, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of fell back in love with it. I mean, it's cheesy, but at the end, like, I still have a love for it. And just watching the vehicles turn into like different vehicles, and like I said, like we said, it's a mix of like G.I. Joe with like Transformers. But like, for those listening, if you have not seen Mask, please just watch the first pilot episode or the second episode, and your mind will be blown. Now, we're gonna talk about the toys, because this is what this Toy Owl segment is about. It's about the toys. Now, Ben, you said that you tried looking up some stuff about the toys, but there really wasn't much out there.
No, so I guess just kind of general history on Kenner. Kenner was kind of a backwater toy company based out of, I believe it was Cincinnati, Ohio. And they'd been around since probably the 60s or 70s, but they didn't have any big breakout hits. And in the 70s, Hasbro had just had the success of G.I. Joe. Mattel was well known for Barbie and a lot of other big toy lines there. And the other big toy company out of the 70s for action figures was Mego. They had all the very posable between 4 and 8 inch like superheroes like Spider-Man, and they had Star Trek licenses for Mego. And so when the Star Wars movies came out, they were looking for somebody to license toys to, because they're like, it's a big kind of family-friendly movie with all these cool stuff, characters and space wizards and, spaceships and things. And they're like, we could make a few extra bucks selling some merchandise off of this. And so they first offered the license to Mego. And Mego looked at it and they're like, no, this seems like some kind of a sci-fi B-movie thing. We really don't want to spend any development money. We've got really famous characters like Hulk and Spider-Man that everybody knows, and they're on TV every day. So we're going to stick to our portfolio. And so Lucasfilm got turned down by a couple different toy companies, and late in the game, they finally, stumbled upon offering the license to Kenner. And Kenner was, looking for something to make it big and really, get some cash flowing through their company. So they said, sure, we'll give you guys a shot. We'll just develop cheap, simple figures to produce, and we'll put some vehicles together. And of course, there was famously the debacle that there were no toys on shelves when the movie hit, because of the fact that it took them so long to reach a deal. But then Kenner came out with the toys the year after the movie in 1978, and sold, I believe the number I've heard for all the Star Wars figures sold between 1978 and 1985 by Kenner is 300 million Star Wars figures.
Wow.
So they made some bank off of that. And so when the 80s rolled around, Mego was on the ropes because they didn't take the Star Wars license. Hulk and Spider-Man were off TV, and they just weren't able to get any, modern 80s hits. And so Mego was basically tapped out of the game, largely because they passed on the Star Wars license. But Kenner was flush with cash. And so they were like, all these other toy companies are coming up with these cartoon toy crossovers where you got a cartoon show about the heroes and villains, and that you use that to sell the toys. And they're like, we can figure this out. And so they did a bunch of new toy lines. I mean, there was there was tons of new toy lines, all these different unique ideas, and Mask was one of those. It was just kind of like, let's pull something out of a hat conceptually, make some toys, see if it sells, and it did. And so they went for four series of toys and 2 seasons of the show. The second season, you mentioned the first one was 65 episodes because of the 65 episode rule. The second season, I think, was 13 episodes.
Yeah,
The 13 episode rule. But one episode a week for 13 weeks instead of an episode every day for 13 weeks. But so it was kind of one of these things. If you look at the action figures that came with the Mask vehicles, they're basically scaled down Star Wars figures, except they gave them bendable knees so that you could sit them into a car seat with their feet under the dash. So they're, a little shorter. I'd say maybe 2.5 inches tall, 2.5 inches tall. And they've got, a hard plastic body with rubber arms and legs and head, and then riveted, knees so that they could sit in the cars. And then each vehicle had a spring-loaded transformation from its disguise mode, like a civilian vehicle, to its attack mode or battle mode, where it's got guns or turns into a jet or a tank or, armor and weaponry pop out.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about like the toy line. Ben, you hit a lot of stuff on the head, and I'm sure Aaron loves the toy line as well, just because like, the vehicles was just very cool, and like the Mask vehicles, I think they were one of the first vehicles that actually had real rubber tires and like real metal chrome. Haven't really seen that. Just like real rubber tires, real metal chrome. And you said something, Ben, about like the figures being like the size of like the Star Wars 3 3/4.
No, they're the design of the Star Wars, not the size.
Right.
It's the same architecture, but just scaled down.
Okay, right, correct. So I guess like there's something that I read upon was people were complaining about like the actual figures because the figures weren't 3 3/4 scale. So I guess like people wanted either the figures to be 3 3/4 scale or they wanted them to be like the size of He-Man. And Kenner was like, well, if we make these figures the size of He-Man, that means the vehicles are going to be like double or triple the size. And, Kenner didn't want to do that because A, it's going to cost a lot more money to make a vehicle that big. And also it's like you need the figure to fit into the vehicle. So like I'm happy that you touched up on that because that was something that I read upon where like people in the 80s were complaining that why are the figures so small? Why can't they make them the size of like an actual He-Man figure?
Yeah, so what those people are missing is that the toy line wasn't about the figures. It was about the vehicles. And that's actually a kind of common thread from, the first action figures arguably were the 12-inch G.I. Joe of the 60s. But then you had the oil crisis hit in 73 and hit again in 79. And plastic is made with oil, so a lot of companies that made, these 8 and 12-inch figures were like, no. We got to bring those things down to like He-Man is 5.5 inch, G.I. Joe is 3 3/4, Micronauts 3 3/4, Star Wars is 3 3/4, and that allowed them to make vehicles. But if you've seen any Star Wars vehicles from the 80s, they're huge. Even G.I. Joe, most of those vehicles, unless it's like a motorcycle, most of those vehicles are huge. And so Kenner wanted to make relatively larger vehicles like a semi-truck. Then you got to make the figure smaller. Otherwise, the semi-trucks, the Rhino set would have cost $100, and you're not going to sell any that way. So you make it smaller, and now you can sell it for $30.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine like the Rhino truck being the size of a Power Wheel? You can actually get in and drive it yourself. That would be amazing, man. I mean, like Aaron, like what's your favorite thing about the toy line?
Well, obviously, I mean, the transformations for me were just, as a kid and playing with these and enjoying these, it was those spring-loaded transformations. I mean, when you hit that button on the Switchblade and it turned from helicopter mode to airplane mode, I mean, that was just you're living through the toy, and I think to this day, to have something go that looks like a helicopter and you press that button and then it switches into something that looks like an airplane and the propellers fold back, and it's just the imagination as a kid just goes crazy. So the transformations, I mean, to me, and I could care less about the figure, kind of like Ben said, and you said it was all about the vehicles. The focus was on the vehicles. I mean, maybe I had a character in the vehicle, but probably most of the time I didn't, and I was just transforming the vehicle and playing with the vehicle and enjoying the kind of just like I said, the imaginative play, of these vehicles. They were amazing.
Yeah. Same here. For me, it was just about the vehicles, man. And hey, Ben, how cool would it be if they make a Transformer / Mask crossover?
They've been teasing that for like the last 5 years now. They're constantly like, oh, we're going to bring Mask back. We're going to bring Mask back. And part of me is like, yes, that's awesome. Let's do it. And the other part of me is like, you're going to mess it up. Just leave it alone. The old toys are great. They're all out there. They're very hot collectible item. You can still enjoy them. You buy them and play with them. They're still fun. So don't mess with it. Don't ruin it. But I think that it would be cool to do an Optimus Prime figure from like a conventional cab, like the movie Optimus Prime.
Ooh. Yep.
Painted as Rhino.
Oh, okay, I can see that. That would be crazy.
And then you got Bumblebee's a Camaro, so's Thunderhawk. Paint up a Bumblebee, red with the purple grid pattern that had to be on every high-tech 80s thing.
Okay, I can see that. I can. Hey, Hasbro, if you're listening to us, you better hire Ben over here.
My phone's not ringing. I don't think we're getting the message.
Well, I mean, they, like you said, they kind of teased it because G.I. Joe came out with a Matt Tracker figure.
Yep, specialist tracker.
Yeah, and so and there's your 3 3/4 scale. So I mean, that if they've teased it, it's there. The idea is out there. So, who knows? Maybe like we talked about at the beginning of this with, Transformers bringing back that kind of 80s theme, Mask could be in the mix.
Yeah, and also wasn't there like a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive where it was like Matt Tracker was in it? I think it was like Jetfire was in it. It was like a whole complete box.
Yeah, was called the Revolution box set, and the Revolution was it was also a comic book by IDW that portrayed all of Hasbro's famous 80s toy brands. All the characters were kind of mingling together in the story, and so they had that box set, which was Jetfire. You had some tiny Micronaut figures. You had Rom the Space Knight, who I've never heard of before or since, but apparently he's as famous as Mask, so they tell me. And yes, I believe they had a couple G.I. Joe characters. And was it Matt Tracker in that set?
I think Matt Tracker was in that set. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was inside that set. So. Yeah. Aaron, have you seen that set before?
No, that's not one I've seen. I knew of the G.I. Joe figure. I didn't know of that set.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a crazy set, like from San Diego Comic-Con. Now here's and this is just for the audience listening right now. Obviously, we talked about the vehicles being very complex mechanisms. They're spring loaded. So that's the problem also, is that when it comes to collectors like us and people that collect toys from the 80s and 90s, is that when you find some of these mass vehicles, either at a flea market or they weren't properly stored. Most of the time, the mechanisms, they're really difficult to maintain. They're kind of hard to find in good condition. The chrome wears down. The rubber tires can crack. The blades and bombs are usually they're lost. And if the toys are not stored properly, the mechanisms can rust and fail, and the springs can lose their tension. So like, that's the toys are awesome, but finding these toys in good conditions is also, really rare and hard unless you like get them on eBay. But I did order from Transformerland.com, and Ben, I think you did my order, and it was like a whole box of like 11 vehicles from Mass that I ordered from you guys, and everything was in great shape. So
I got you, brother. We try and I've got boxes and boxes of junkers, and so I spend a lot of time on these things trying to repair them, get them up to snuff. I'll put the parts. You said the bombs and missiles and little posable guns and stuff are often missing, so I try and get all that stuff to make as good of a set as possible. And since they're hot right now, it's worth taking time to try and repair some of these guys. Although one of the most difficult repair jobs that I've had to do on a toy is the Jackhammer vehicle. It's the black Ford Bronco that kind of turns into a tank.
Yep.
I don't remember if that's one of the 11 you picked up. I'm guessing it is because
it's
one of the series ones, so it's a little more common. But that mechanism, when you transform the vehicle, you slide the hood up over the windshield to protect the windshield, and that lowers the front grille, and there's two little machine gun barrels. And then when you roll the vehicle forward, those machine gun barrels extend, and then they start popping in and out like they're reciprocating. And that whole mechanism is made out of like 300 little pieces of plastic, and it's just kind of all looped over each other inside the front of the vehicle. And if you jam those things in, like if you close the grill when they're still extended, you can dislodge that mechanism in there. And there are mass vehicles, largely they look like they're screwed together where you could just unscrew them and take them apart, and some of them that's true, but a lot of them are glued shut from the factory. And so there's two ways to do it. One of them is to like carefully pry along the glue seam and unglue the vehicle so you can get inside and repair the mechanism. The other is to do surgery with a couple pairs of tweezers through the little hole on the bottom beside the front wheel and try and hook all that stuff back together in there without opening it up. And that is such a pain, but it's such a cool mechanism to have it, drive along, extend these machine guns, and then start firing. Some of the easier ones are like Thunderhawk, where there's just a spring for the doors to flip open and a coil spring in the back to pop the spoiler up. That one's way easier to deal with, and it breaks less often. But
so wait a minute, Ben. Wait a minute. Are you telling the audience right now that in order to be a mass collector, you also got to be a certified mechanic?
No, in order to be a mask dealer, you got to be a certified mechanic and a neurosurgeon.
There we go. All right, so like I just want to go through the toys and like maybe each one of us can, share like who our favorite vehicle is or our favorite character. Aaron, I don't know if you want to start it off, like what 3 vehicles are like your favorite, or what vehicle is like one of your favorites out of this toy line?
Yeah. I probably got more than 3, but I'll.
Yeah. Hey, go right ahead, man.
So I was prepared for the top. Like I was like, all right, I got my top. So I remember playing with this one, and my favorite by far, hands down, was the Buzzard. And it's probably kind of like, a lot of people's low on the list, but I just loved it because you had it was like the IndyCar, and you press the button in the middle, and all of a sudden you had the 2 sides shootout, and they had individual vehicles. You had, it was a bad guy. It was a Venom vehicle. So like, I don't know. My wife makes fun of me. I'm always into if there's a bad guy, I'm into the bad guys. I could care less about the good guys. When I collect G.I. Joe, I got to collect Cobra, I don't collect anything G.I. Joe. It's all Cobra. So Buzzard is on the top of my list. Number 2 on my list was the Hurricane. That 57 Chevy and that blue just pops, and you turn the top of it, and it turns into that tank with 6 wheels or 8 wheels or whatever it is. That thing is just like, I remember just hours and hours and hours, as a kid playing with that. And number 3, just because it just brings me back to my childhood, was the motorcycle, the Bullet. That just, it turns into the hovercraft. My dad actually found it the other day, and he sent it up to me. So I have my childhood Bullet. I got it the other day, and just playing with it, and I was playing with my son with it, and it turned into the hovercraft. And to see he's 5, and to see his eyes light up just like my eyes probably lit up when I was that age, it was just phenomenal. So those are my top 3 for those reasons.
That's awesome, man. That's a good top right there. And the Hurricane, man, I love the Hurricane as well. That's actually on my list. So I don't mind mentioning that again.
Can I just point out that the Buzzard, which is Miles Mayhem and his evil twin brother, I guess they're both evil twins. It's purple because it's evil, so it's got to be purple, right?
Gotta be purple.
Oh man, so true. Why was everything purple? If it's evil, it's purple. Aaron, what about you, man?
Oh, Aaron went, but
sorry, Ben. Aaron, you just went.
I can jump in. So there is a Fiero. You guys know I drive a Fiero daily. There is a Fiero, but I find it deeply disappointing because it shows the engine in the front of the car, and that's just not how it is. So that one's disqualified for my favorites. But one of my top ones, it's also one of the first mask toys I got, which this happened, in the 2000s before I actually owned any of these. But it's the Goliath. It's a 6-wheeled racing rig, and it's like a flatbed truck or a ramp truck. And then it also comes with a Formula One car. And the Formula One car turns into a jet. You can either push a button on the roof, or if you drive it off the end of the ramp going forward, it'll auto-trigger the transformation. If you roll it down the ramp backward, it stays as a car and it goes off to the races. And then the truck itself, 2 ramps turn into missile launchers, and the truck kind of shortens and the cab pops up. And then when you drive it along, the missile launchers kind of scan back and forth. That's one of my favorites. The only thing is the skinny little spoiler on that F1 car is a constant problem. They are all broke, but it's still one of my favorite vehicles. It looks great in both modes, and it's kind of fun how they interact, where the truck can cause the car to transform when you fly it off the end of these ramps.
That's awesome. That is awesome, man. Yeah. I'm looking at a picture now. The Goliath. I've never actually played with that toy. I'm gonna have to order that one from you guys from Transformer Land. So
I'll set one aside for you next time I get one in.
Oh yes, definitely, man. I definitely gotta get that one. For me, I'm a sucker for like flying cars, just like Back to the Future. Anything that has like wings. So Vanessa Warfield's Manta, there's just something about that car where like, the 2 wings pop out. Then like the tires flip up. The passenger side seat can come down. You got the guns. It's just, the whole thing is just amazing, man. And it's funny because like that's actually, besides Matt Tracker's vehicle, that's a very popular vehicle. Even on eBay, like incomplete, it goes for like $90. And I didn't even know that Vanessa Warfield's vehicle off of is that Series 3, Ben?
Yes, it's Series 3, but they start showing her in the cartoon in like Season 1, early Season 1 with that thing.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, which is weird. I don't know why they introduced it into Series 3, the actual action figure line. But yeah, man, I'm in love with that. And again, the vehicle is purple. Why? Because it's Venom and it's evil. So there you go, man. So yeah, Manta is number 1 for me. And again, like I said, I just love flying vehicles. And Matt Tracker, the Thunderhawk is number 2, and number 3 is the Rhino for me, man. Like there's something about that truck where like the front grill thing just expands out. There's the inside opens up. There's like a rocket on the inside, and the back of it comes apart to like a little vehicle. It's just awesome, man. I think that's why us three, like, we're in love with like Mask and these vehicles, because again, it's a mix of G.I. Joe meets Transformers, man, and it's just awesome, man. I don't know, man. Do you guys feel like there might be possibly a cartoon reboot for this?
I think it would have to be a big blockbuster film to bring it back, because that's been kind of the word of the day is like, okay, you get an 80s series, you make a big blockbuster film, and that's how you get it to come back, because then you have literally $1 billion worth of advertising out there for your toy line. But then, there's cases like the G.I. Joe movies where they didn't do that well and the toys didn't do that well. So, who knows what we'll see.
Well, speaking of... go ahead, Aaron.
Can I throw one question out there while we're on the opinions on the toys?
Oh, yes, of course.
So last time when you had Jake and I on, we talked about, Jake and I get a kick out of talking about toys we hate. So I want to throw to you guys, what is your least favorite Mask toy? And you cannot pick T-Bob. That doesn't count. It's got to be one of the vehicle sets.
Oh, I was going to say T-Bob. Oh, man, least favorite. All right.
I'm trying to remember which one was the Volcano was the battery operated one, right?
That's correct. Yep. The big monster truck van.
So that's and maybe that's kind of like the elephant in the room, but it's like, I don't know, like that was the only one that was battery operated. It was very cool, but I think, like, from a like purist toy perspective, it's like, if none of the other ones are going to be battery operated, then why is this one battery operated? And I've heard, I don't personally own one, but I've searched for one and stuff like that, and I've heard that they are just hellacious because, again, as a kid in the 80s, you never took the batteries out of the compartment, and so most Volcanoes don't work because they had batteries in them. So that's going to be my least favorite toy.
That's interesting that you bring that up. First, there is one other battery-operated set. It's called Laser Command, and it's the one where Matt Tracker comes in a wooden packing crate that turns into a jet, and Miles Mayhem is in a blue like dually pickup. It looks very similar to the Firecracker from Series 1, and the gimmick is that the packing crate Hornet has like a infrared light in it where you fire, and it's supposed to make the pickup explode when you hit it just right. But it's interesting you mentioned about the Volcano having problems with battery leakage, because I've been buying and selling Mask toys for quite a few years now. I'm looking here on our price guide. I've sold 17 complete Volcanoes, and every last one of them has worked. In fact, I got one from Guy's collection, nicely taken care of stuff, but he left the batteries in Volcano, and I picked it up, and you can tell, it's heavier than it should be. There's a couple C batteries in here. And I opened it up, and here are these two, I think they were Rayovacs with like the old-fashioned crimped top.
Wow.
It kind of rolls over the top of the two end terminals. And they not only had they not leaked at all, but when I hit the switch, it ran on like 20-year-old batteries.
Wow.
It just started right up. I'm like, oh my God. So I actually, I have a running joke, which, Steve, if you stay tuned into my Mask updates enough, otherwise you can just go to the price guides. But I always make a joke about how well the Volcano runs. And usually in the case where there is an exploded battery in there, you just, brush the terminal off with wire brush a little bit. And worst case scenario, you got to open it up and just spin the motor over with your fingers to get like the inside of the motor freed, and it'll just run like a tank.
Wow. You know what? I've never actually got to play with that one, man. So I gotta order that one off you guys. Yeah, I never really got to see that one. So
Yeah, it is kind of weird that it is the only like motorized one where it runs and drives, like Aaron said. But I guess my reason for not putting it at the top of my list, other than the fact that there's an inside joke, with my item descriptions on the website, it's just that you've got this monster truck van, and the chassis is this big black brick that's got all your mechanisms and the motor and the batteries in it, and then all the van does is like kind of split in half like an egg, where the turret comes out the middle. So there's not as much of like a transformation there. It's just the van body opening up in half, and that's kind of all it does, other than the motor gimmick. So it's not as mechanically interesting.
oh wow, oh man, yeah, I definitely gotta take a look into that. Yeah, you and Aaron opened up my mind to a new vehicle I didn't even know of. So yeah, so for me, I'm trying to remember the name of this one. I think it was like a jet or something. It came apart.
Meteor. It's like a white stunt jet.
Yeah, I remember that, and I was just like, okay, so I just break the front of it, and it's like a pod or something. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't see like anything too cool about it. Just like the Series 1 or Series 2 vehicles, it was just like, all right, this turns into a pod, and I forgot what the other end turned into. So
the back half turns into a tank. There's treads that come down, and the wings just kind of droop down. It's okay. yeah. That's one vehicle that like I'm just like, I don't really need it in my collection. It's not anything too like,
I feel like Series 1 is like the main core as for me, and that's why I ordered pretty much all the Series 1 of Transformerland, because like Series 1 just had all the cool vehicles, and like I said, Series 3 had Manta, and that's like one of my favorites. But what about you, Ben?
So this might be easy fodder, but I actually have 3 least favorite pieces. They're all from Series 3, the racing series. And it's Billboard Blast, Pit Stop Catapult, and the Collector. And they're play sets, and I'm saying that with big air quotes. Billboard Blast is literally a billboard. And it's got like a fictional oil company on one side with like a car, and then the other side is another picture of a car, and it's just a big old sticker on there. And the transformation is the billboard opens up like a book. And inside there's a little gunner seat, and the diagonal like post that holds the billboard up off the ground is a missile launcher that kind of shoots into the air at an oblique angle. Pit Stop Catapult is a gas pump with a sign, and the gas pump is a spring-loaded catapult. You put tires in it. They give you 3 spiked tires. You just kind of flip the gas pump in half, and it flings these tires all of like 6 inches. And the Collector is a toll booth, and it just opens up and there's some guns. It is so lame. They're not worth much either, so I'm obviously not the only person who has a problem with them. They're just dumb. Like, how are you gonna go rescue the day from evil terrorists in a billboard? I get like it's supposed to be, we'll ambush them. It's like, okay, the U.S. has like 35 million miles of freeway. Where are you going to set up your billboard to be sure that you get Miles Mayhem as he's driving past?
That is the worst. Like, can you imagine like being like Pit Stop, the Collector, or Billboard? So it's like
cop out.
Yeah, it's like me, you, and Aaron, and Matt Tracker's like, all right, Steve, you're Billboard, Ben, you're Pit Stop, and Aaron, you're the Collector, and all you guys have to do while my car turns into a flying jet and I'm in the air flying, you just stay here bored out of your mind. Like,
great, thanks, Chief. Asshole. So the funny part is there's 2 more that were not produced. One of them is called Ramp Up, and it's like a lift, like a service lift. And the other one is called Thunderball, which makes you think, ooh, exciting, like James Bond, Thunderball, right? No,
Right.
it's like a water tower, and it just flips open like Billboard Blast, and they got canceled. And there's a couple prototypes floating around out there, for hundreds or thousands of dollars. And I'm like, you know what? I'm glad those didn't get made. Screw those things. I'm so glad they did not bother with those, and I don't have to spend my money on them because they're not produced, so I don't care. But my other least favorite vehicle is, and I don't know if I don't think this is in episode 1 through 4, so you guys may not have even seen it, but it's called the Shark.
The
And
Shark.
It's the primary vehicle of Gloria Baker, and it's a white Porsche 928 that turns into a submarine. And it looks so cool, but they didn't even design a toy of it. No design sketch, no prototypes, nothing. And they use it time and time and time and time again in the cartoon. And it's like, where's my Gloria Baker with the shark? This just doesn't exist. You finally get the Gloria Baker figure with the Series 4 split-second stiletto, which is a white Countach that turns into 2 different jets. And so the Gloria Baker figure is worth like $100 because people want Gloria Baker because she's in season 1. She's one of the main characters.
Yep.
But there's no such thing as a shark toy, and I'm so mad about that. I'm like, come on.
Huh.
Somebody a few years back, and I'm sure this has been done more than once, but somebody made a really cool custom shark out of a Manta and a Porsche 928 model kit.
Wow.
They completely cut it apart, but they used like the Manta's spring mechanism instead of having like big jet wings. It pops out like submarine fins, and instead of popping up, missiles, it's like a torpedo launcher or something like that. But yeah, so I'm mad at the non-existence of the shark toy.
I've never even heard. I gotta do my research and look that up. I don't know, Aaron. Have you ever heard of that?
Well, I mean, if it wasn't produced.
I mean,
if you guys watch more of the show, I'm guessing you probably wouldn't have to watch more than like 10 episodes to see it at least once in the show because they use it a lot.
oh, Ben, you're gonna have to take my eyes so I can keep watching the show. Oh my God. All right, so we're getting to the hour and 20-minute mark. But what I want to find out from you guys and for the audience listening is, Aaron, would you recommend people listening right now to either watch the cartoon show or collect the toys or both?
Of course. I mean, but going into it, kind of like what we talked about, you have to go into this show with a grain of salt, and just take it for what it's worth. The 80s was a crazy time in toys and cartoons, and like we discussed earlier, it was, they were creating the cartoons to push the toys. So the cartoons maybe didn't make sense, or they just were like, completely out there. And, but as a toy and as a child of the 80s and playing with these toys, I mean, the imagination that they put into the toys was just phenomenal. And, how they transformed. And even if you didn't know anything about the TV show and didn't watch the TV show, I think the toys are they'll always hold a special place in my heart. I think I told you this, Steve, that my dad's still looking for a few of the pictures, but I remember having a masked birthday party and, having the figures in the vehicle on top of a birthday cake. And I had the mask, like that was, because of course, at every birthday party you had to have like hats or something, right? Well, I have a picture of me somewhere wearing like the actual mask, and it was just a little cardboard cutout with like a red see-through, filament on it, so you could see through it. So, I'd recommend collecting, watching both, because they're just a really cool toy line. Like I said, like even just, showing them to my 5-year-old son, he loves them. I mean, he was zooming them around the living room the other day, So it's great. And I think the toy line, it just, even though it only had limited TV time, it still got 4 series of toys. So that speaks kind of volumes on how popular the toy line was even without the show.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said, Aaron. It's like, even if the people listening right now have never watched the cartoon, but you play with the toy, or you see the toys and how like complex they are and the way they transform, I definitely recommend people and all toy collectors out there that if you collect vintage toys from the 80s, this is a line that you have to at least have a few vehicles from, because it's just the toy etiquette and like the elegance of it, and just the complexity of it is just amazing. And like right now I'm looking at my toy shelf and I have like 13 vehicles so far thanks to Transformerland. And yeah, man, I totally recommend it to everybody. If you're a vintage toy collector, definitely get into this line. What about you, Ben?
I say forget the cartoon, just focus on the toys. Like there are so many 80s cartoons that are tied to toy lines, and Mask was the first episodes are wacky, but then, every cartoon there's always that teething period where they haven't established anything. They're just trying to kind of dump all the characters and vehicles out there. You have to watch quite a bit more of the cartoon to get anything out of it than most people are willing to commit to, a campy 80s cartoon. So I say forget the cartoon completely and just get the toys. And Steve, you personally, you got to get into some of the later series stuff, because the first series was great, but there are some real gems in the second through fourth series. Just really weird, cool designs. Like Meteor is a little lame, but then in Series 4 you've got Skybolt, where it's a fighter jet that turns into a Formula One car and a jet pod. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the more expensive toys from the whole line, but it's way cooler than Meteor. I mean, there's tons of cool stuff from the later series. And this is the other thing. The show only ever shows you half of the vehicles. You never get to see like the detonator, which is a Baja Beetle, like a Volkswagen Bug with the big tires in the back that splits into an ATV that the dude rides like a crotch rocket in a hovercraft.
What? I mean, okay. All right. I'm sold. I guess after the podcast, I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be sitting in front of my computer, going to transformerland.com and just like putting stuff into a cart.
But yeah, if you want a good cartoon, go watch Starcom. It's only 13 episodes long. It was super well written, super well made. Doesn't have questionable racial overtones, making fun of Bruce Sato speaking English. And it's only 13 episodes long, tragically, so you don't have to sit there for hour after hour.
That's awesome. I'm definitely going to have to check that out. And so we're at the hour and 25-minute mark, and guys, like, this was the second toy eye episode, and this was on Mask, and it was awesome. It definitely brought me back to when I was a kid watching the cartoon series. And man, rewatching that, I didn't know how nutty it was until rewatching it. But again, forget about the cartoon. The toys are cool. Ben, if you want to plug Transformerland for the audience,
I think you sold us for me here, but we're always buying and selling toys. If you got a collection of 80s stuff and you're getting back into the 80s, but maybe you got a few toys that you don't want to keep for yourself, definitely look us up. That's how we find good stuff for people like Steve that are addicted to the plastic and can't get enough. And if you're looking for Mask toys, subscribe to our mailing list, transformerland.com. It's right there on the front page. We send out emails. We do 2 updates every week, usually listing, 200-300 new items. I try to get Mask stuff up as often as I can because it's it's one of my favorite toy lines, right up there with Transformers, because they're just such cool toys. They're really unique in a way that a lot of 80s toys did not manage. And a lot of 80s toys didn't risk doing anything as complex and intricate as the Mask toys. So it's definitely one of my all-time favorites. And if you're just curious about the toys, go to our site, transformerland.com, click on Guides and Wiki, and look for Mask in the menu. You'll find pictures of just about everything that came out, with the exception of a couple Europe-exclusive figure packs that I haven't hunted down yet for my own collection. But we've got photos of everything, and shows what it came with, who it came with, the masks, all the weapons. It's all there.
Nice, awesome. And Aaron, what about you? You want to plug anything? I know that you're in some forums where you sell toys and stuff like that. So,
I don't really have anything to plug, but if anybody wants to send free stuff, you can send it to Steve and me, and we'll gladly accept it. Not trying to take any business from Ben over there, but
why don't you plug which of the Ecto Glow Ghostbusters you're looking for? Which one's left that you need for your set?
I think it's just Ray. I need Ray.
Ecto Glow Ray Stance. Give us a shout if you've got one.
Yeah, if you got a Ray Stance or any of the backpacks, hit me up. So it'll be a personal plug of my want list every week.
So everybody listening out there right now, if you listen to this episode on YouTube, leave a comment if you have an Ecto Glow, and that will be Aaron's Christmas gift from whoever sends him that Ecto Glow. So yeah, man, this was a great episode. I just want to plug that everybody listening right now, you can find us on YouTube at Cereal Box Prize Podcast. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. You can also find us at anchor.fm/Cereal Box Prize Podcast. And that link will send you to Spotify. It'll send you to Radio Public. It'll send you to our YouTube link. And also, you can actually leave us a personal voicemail message on anchor.fm/Cereal Box Prize Podcast. And if you head over to our Facebook page, Cereal Box Prize Podcast, we're going to be posting photos, pictures. We'll be posting some videos. We'll also have this new episode up on there, and just some great content there on our Facebook page. So I'm Steve Garcia, and I just want to say thank you to my co-hosts one more time again from the Toy Owl, to Ben and Aaron. Thank you, guys.
Steve.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you. And guys, just stay on the line while I hang up over here. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next episode.